Hello, welcome to the podcast, Human Rights in America, a Revolutionary Mindset. I am your host, Sue Young. Thank you for listening. And remember, this podcast is on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube, Amazon Music, and now Audible. Like, listen, share, follow, subscribe, and repeat. You can contact me at hrinamerica@gmail.com. Annex 2 to the United Nations Declaration is called Convention on the Rights of a Child, CRC for short. It was adopted by the UN in 1989. The CRC has 54 articles. All right, hold your horses. I am not going to read each of those articles. In fact, I was only going to bring up the CRC in passing, but because of some recent headlines in Louisiana, I decided to talk about the CRC. And you know what? I'm glad I did, because I learned so much. So, why is this called the convention? Well, unlike a declaration, which is non-binding, a convention is a treaty that binds the member state to the UN. No U.S. president has submitted the CRC to the Senate for approval. We are the only country in the UN and the only country on the planet that has not signed this treaty. We know that the Clinton administration signed the convention in 1995, but did not submit it to the Senate. The Bush administration opposed the CRC, citing legal and political issues and concerns that it conflicted with the U.S. laws. President Obama pursued ratification through an interagency policy review. I start all my podcasts off with the what if question. Just because this is the way it is right now, what can we do to be revolutionary thinkers? When you listen to this information, think of it in terms of that. It was eye-opening to me. So if you know anyone under the age of 18, you have kids or grandkids, you might want to listen up. Opponents says that it threatens homeschooling. Others believe that it undermines U.S. sovereignty by giving the United Nations authority to determine the best interests of U.S. children. Some contend that the CRC is an ineffective mechanism for protecting children's rights. They emphasize that countries widely regarded as abusers of children's rights, such as China and Sudan, are a party to this convention. And many countries consider the U.S. as hypocrites because it expects other countries to comply with the international standards that itself does not follow. Supporters of the Convention on the Rights of a Child hold that ratification would strengthen the U.S. credibility abroad and give the United States additional fora to pursue the advancement of children's rights. The U.S. non-ratification leads governments to question the sincerity of the U.S. in addressing children's rights, thereby hindering the ability of the U.S. to advocate for children's rights in countries with poor human rights records. Countries believe that the United States, with its history of democracy and policies that respect children, could share its experience and expertise with the countries that aim to protect children's rights. We have no federal law regarding children, except labor law. Therefore, each state is able to make up their own laws for children. And that is one reason why we haven't signed this treaty. Because we have no federal law, each of the individual states would fall under the authority of the United Nations, and that's not going to happen. Many of the issues addressed by the convention are left to the jurisdiction of individual states, not the federal government. As a result, the protection and advancement of child rights varies from state to state. Recognition that state-level reform is important for improving the U.S. child rights record. There was a study done that grades and ranks each U.S. state on the legal protections they extend to their children on 4 key issues: child marriage, corporal punishment, child labor, and juvenile justice. All 50 states were measured on these 4 categories. In 2022, the United States overwhelmingly failed to live up to key standards set by the CRC. Overall, 16 states received an F grade, and of the remaining states, 27 received a D grade, 7 received a C grade. Not a single state received an A or a B. In 2023, 11 states enacted reforms that improved their grades or rankings since the release of the scorecard. 4 states shed their F grade, 33 graduated to a C, and multiple states significantly improved their rankings. If there was a federal law regulating children's behavior, then the states would have to meet that law, but they could always exceed it. They can always do better. But if you listen to this study, they haven't. There are 4 key categories. Today, I am only going to talk about 2, because when I did this before, it was really too long. So I'm only going to talk about 2. Let it sink in. Regarding marriage, the Committee on the Rights of a Child reminds parties that persons up to 18 years are entitled to be continually protected from all forms of exploitation and abuse. It reaffirms that the minimum age limit for marriage should be 18 years old. But the research shows that over 250,000 children, some as young as 10, were married in the United States between the years 2000 and 2018. Most child marriages in the U.S. are girls marrying adult men. In fact, many of these marriages occurred at an age or with a spousal age difference that would typically be considered sexual violence. Child marriage is legal in 41 states. The first state to ban child marriage was Delaware in 2018. The second category is corporal punishment. Corporal punishment is defined as any punishment in which physical force is used and intended to cause some degree of pain or discomfort, however light. The international standards requires the states to protect children from all forms of physical and mental violence. It does not leave room for any level of legalized violence against children, including corporal punishment and other cruel or degrading forms of punishment or forms of violence. The member state must take all appropriate legislative, administrative, and educational measures to eliminate them. In the United States, the study looked at laws in each state in these 4 categories. Specifically, corporal punishment in schools, public and private, homes, alternative care settings, and penal institutions. According to the 2022 study, approximately 160,000 children are subjected to corporal punishment in schools each year. Only 3 states have prohibited corporal punishment in both public and private schools. 25 states have outlawed corporal punishment in public schools only. Meanwhile, in 22 states, corporal punishment is legal in both public and private schools. Additionally, states were evaluated on whether they permit corporal punishment at home. All the states flunked. Bringing a little hope to this information, I believe that America should be the leader in children's rights. Let's talk the talk, but let's walk the walk as well. You know, when we were growing up, my mom had a paperweight at home that said, "If you're not the lead dog, the view never changes." A quote by Louis Grizzard. We need revolutionary minds to address this area. We can do better. Just imagine, I was in Germany in 1990. I went over there to visit my aunt who just had a baby. Her husband was gone. He was a military man. We lived in Wiesbaden. We used to go to the bakery every day, and something I noticed, and this is 1990 Germany, people could park the baby in the baby carriage and leave it outside, and no one would ever bother the babies. This was in 1990. Could we do that in 1990 in America? I know not today, but it's something to think about. What does it look like if we became the leaders and really believed in protecting children's rights? Again, in Germany in 1990, not only could you park a baby outside and it not get stolen or anything like that, but a lot of stores, clothing stores, liquor stores, any store, always had a candy jar for children. Is that what it looks like when you really care about children and you invest and believe in their rights? I don't know, but that was Germany in 1990. Well, I'll leave you with one last story and a quote. The story is this. A friend of mine and I were talking. She used the term third world country. And she looked at me and she said, "You know, I know you don't like that term." And I don't, because it assumes that the U.S. is better than any other country. And according to this study, it feels like we are third world country. So, a quote by Maya Angelou. Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better. As I mentioned, we're going to stop there because next week we're going to talk about the 2 additional sections, child labor and juvenile justice. And I'll tell you a little bit more about Louisiana. It kind of ties into labor law. So, that's it for today. Until next time, be revolutionary, be human.